Blog Talk Radio.
All right, it's time for the next episode of It's All Geek to Me. And on this episode, we have an award-winning actor, screenwriter, and director, Derek Johnson. Derek, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm fine. How are you?
Doing great.
Cool.
What initially got you interested in acting and film? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, I said I just stubbed my toe right when you asked me that. So I guess, truthfully, I have a sore toe right now.
Sorry about that.
What was your question?
The question was, what initially got you interested in acting and filmmaking?
Oh, man. Well, it's been my lifelong dream, really. I guess I'd say since I was about 3 years old, just every day has been movies for me. I guess the one thing that sparked it, the first film I remember seeing in the cinema was The Karate Kid Part 2. And I just can remember being 3 years old and just being captivated by what I was seeing. And so, yeah, it's just been a part of my everyday life, since I was 3.
Like myself, you also attended Carthage High School and were a part of Mr. Pitchford's broadcast journalism class. What are some of the things that you learned in that class that helped you as you began your career?
Oh, man. Well, first of all, Mr. Pitchford, as you know, was just an amazing mentor, an amazing teacher. And, gosh, that's really where, as far as filmmaking, I got started. He taught a lot of the different editing softwares. I think we were editing on Avid. We were even editing Super VHS and things like that. But so really there I learned how to edit. It was really cool before I went to film school that I already knew the Avid system, at 16 in high school. So I give a lot of credit to Mr. Pitchford for where that's where I learned to edit. And really also I learned just some of the basics of storytelling, because as you remember, we would grab a camera and we would just shoot all kinds of video, put it together. Some of it was for contests, contests, and some of it was just to play around and experiment. So learned a lot of the basics at 16, 17, 18 years old in these classes.
After you graduated from Carthage, you went to Stephen F. Austin State University, where you wrote and starred in a film called Within Us. Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
Oh, definitely. That was it actually involved Mr. Pitchford as well. I was a senior when I did that film, and what we did in film school there was we all would write our scripts, feature scripts in the fall semester, and then we would vote on who would get to shoot the feature film, because we only shot one feature film every summer. My film Within Us, I came up with the idea to do a teaser to kind of, instead of doing a PowerPoint or something like that, I decided, hey, I really want to make a movie next year, so we shot a teaser with Mr. Pitchford in the lead role, or one of the lead roles, and it was only like a 5-minute thing, and I used that as my pitch to the class. So I had my script and this teaser, and they voted for it to be the one that we made. So I called up Mr. Pitchford again, and I said, hey, I'm writing a lead role for you in this film. Because, him being an educator, he was off in the summer. So I said, would you be interested in playing the part? And it was really cool that, a year before we shot this little 5-minute teaser, and then a year later we're shooting the feature film, and I'm getting to work with Donnie Pitchford.
Now, was that also, if I remember correctly, was that also the first time you got to work with Brad Mall, or was that later? Yeah,
that was the first time. Brad Mall, he was on General Hospital for I think 22 years. He played Dr. Tony Jones, and so he was a soap star for a long time. And when he retired from the show, he came back and started teaching acting and film at SFA. And I guess he started there my senior year, and we just hit it off, became friends, and because he graduated from SFA. So it was, nice for him to come back and teach. And, I got to work with him. And since then, he and I have worked on almost everything I've done since then. He's just a wonderful actor, and I just love working with him.
How did you get involved with the television show Thief?
Oh, Thief, yeah. Well, that was actually my first professional gig ever. I was an extra on several episodes. And the funny thing is what happened was, they were supposed to shoot that, I believe, in New Orleans, and unfortunately Hurricane Katrina hit, so everything that was going to be in New Orleans moved up to Shreveport. Well, I was a senior film student at SFA, which, as you know, is an hour and a half, hour 45 minutes from Shreveport. So I heard about this casting call, and actually my girlfriend at the time and my mother, those two really pushed me to go do it. And it's funny because it actually, since then, that was about 8 years ago, a lot came from that. Meeting people, got an agent from that, and it just kind of spread like a wildfire. But yeah, Thief was interesting. It's funny. I was so naive to it all. I wanted to be an actor and all this. I was so excited that I was an extra, and I can remember really giving it my all. Just not knowing that I probably wouldn't even be seen. And on TV. And I remember I sent out a Facebook group or whatever invite, and I had everybody on their television sets. Everyone was so excited, that they were going to see me on television. And I swear the most you saw from me was maybe my hair. I mean, literally a friend of mine said, I'm pretty sure I saw you out of focus in the background because you had spiky hair, and I think that was you. And talk about such a letdown. But what it did is it really it taught me a lot about this business. And so, Thief, I hold that special to my heart because I worked really hard on it, and only to learn that you're not always going to make the cut, so to speak.
Now, you've been a part of a lot of short films in your career. Is there a big difference between filming a short and filming a full-length feature? And what were some of the favorite ones that you worked on?
Oh, man, there were so many. There is a difference in a short film and a feature film. Now, of course, the days are pretty much the same. I mean, it's pretty much you're plucking out a few days out of a feature film, and just you still have the same mentality and everything on set. Say you're shooting your short film for 3 days. That's the equivalent of 3 days on a feature film. But one thing is you have to tell the story in 5 to maybe 30 minutes, as opposed to 90 minutes to 2 hours. So there's a big difference. And the great thing about short films, and one reason why I'm happy I've done so many of them, is because it just teaches you how to get your point across in a short amount of time. And whereas, in a feature film, again, it's all about pacing. Some of my favorites, man, I'm trying to think. There's so many. Well, on that note, I've done a lot of trailers as well, teaser trailers and promo trailers I use those, again, like I was talking about within us, as, to entice investors, to get people on board the project. So I've done a lot of those, but my favorite was called Innocent's Way, and that's a 8-minute promo. You may have seen it for my feature film script, Innocent's Way, that we're trying to do. It's a period piece drama, and I'd say that was my favorite. We shot it 6 years ago, and it still holds up, I think.
How did you get involved with the film I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell, and do you have any funny stories from shooting it?
Oh, totally. So my agent said, hey, you've got an audition for, I believe it was called Frat Guy Number 1 or something like that. I said, hey, I was in a fraternity. This should be great. So I went to to the audition, and I tell you something, I had never experienced this before. Usually a casting director will say, "Hi, how are you?" Okay, you know, and they'll actually speak to you or whatever, and then you'll do your audition. Well, with this particular casting director, I walked in his office. He didn't say anything to me except he started the lines. Well, luckily I knew the lines well enough and everyone else's lines that I knew what he was doing, and I picked up on it immediately. So I was able to say the lines back, and we did this thing, and then when it was over, you know, he said, "Cut." He said, "Good, that was good that you picked up on that. Good job." Well, I came in for the callback, and in the callback, then there was like almost the entire cast and producers and the director and everyone in the callback, including Tucker Max, who, of course, as we know, wrote I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell and produced the film, and the movie is about his book. His reputation definitely holds up, but once you get past that, he's a super cool guy. And so I got the part, and I tell you something, man, I went out with a buddy of mine one night to this bar in Shreveport where Beer and Hill was filmed, and I look over at the bar and I see Tucker Max and all of these guys, and Tucker had been like messing with me online on his website. I guess I had said something, or he sent him an email because I was so hyped up, and he, you know, if you know Tucker Max's humor, he kind of made fun of me a bit. And so we buy him a drink, or the whole group a drink, and he goes, "Who are you guys?" I go, "I'm actually casting your movie." And Tucker goes, "You're the guy I've been messing with online." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's me. That's me." He goes, "Come here, man." He puts his arm around me, and he's like, "You're cool." And so we went to some parties together. We had a good time. On set, I'm pretty sure he threw a football and hit me in my back, but that's okay. I forgive him because I sparred him later at one of his parties, and I won. Anyway, so we had a good time. I met a bunch of people, and it was a blast. And actually, I made a lot of really good friends and future co-stars and co-producers from, you know, that one film.
Can you talk a little about the film Blind Turn and your role in that?
Yeah, Blind Turn, actually, it was a day player role. It was a very small role, but again, one of those that I went in, auditioned, you know, got the part. I actually had auditioned for a bigger role, didn't get it, and I always make the joke with the producer and director, they're friends of mine, that I guess I just wasn't good looking enough because the guy they cast was just, you know, square jawed and handsome looking guy. So I was cast as Rachel Boston's brother, and it was interesting the way they shot it because the scene is me and her family, again I play her brother, are doing some sort of like internet video card for her or something, like an e-greeting or something, but it's video. So that was interesting the way they shot it. That was cool, and you know, Rachel, she's actually doing real well. She's on a TV show now, I believe, and she's done a few movies. And again, that was just one of those that I met a lot of people, and actually I worked with the producer on some other projects after that. So, yeah, it was really cool.
All right, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Jedi and let him take over for the second half.
Cool.
All right. So, pretty recently, you wrote, directed, and starred in the film Broken Blood. You happen to also round up a pretty remarkable crew of actors there for that one. Just wondering where the idea for the film came from, and can you tell anybody a little bit about the about the cast and crew, about just your experience with making that movie?
Yeah, well, that's Broken Blood. That is very dear to my heart. That was, I guess, my first bigger venture as a filmmaker. And, yeah, like you said, we definitely rounded up a great cast. Most of our cast came from L.A., I'd say about 90%. We didn't even use a casting director on that film. Most of the actors I was already friends with or friend of a friend, but I wrote almost every role for each actor except Pruitt Taylor Vince's role. I didn't actually know Pruitt at the time, and we were going to offer that role to another actor in Hollywood, and for whatever reason, this actor wasn't available. so we were stuck. You know, I had this entire cast that I wrote all the roles for, and you know, this one character of Earl Wayne is just sitting there, and Pruitt Taylor Vince just happened to be in Shreveport where he was working, and my producing partner said, "Hey, I have a meeting with him. Would you like me to give him the script?" I said, "Of course." And the next day, Pruitt, he loved the script. He signed on, and we got Emmy Award-winning Pruitt Taylor Vince, who actually he was just nominated for Best Supporting Actor for his role of Earl Wayne at the Northeast Film Festival a couple months ago. And the crew, most of the crew were quote-unquote local, Shreveport, Louisiana, and East Texas crew. And so it was great because I got to work with a lot of my friends, both from L.A. and Shreveport.
That's cool. You also have another recent movie, The Pardon. I was wondering if you could give us a little bit about your appearance in there.
Yeah, that was, we shot that about 6 years ago, and it's just a testament to the filmmakers. They didn't settle on with distribution, and they really hung in there and believed in their film, and it took them a while to get the proper distribution, and they got it. I actually was a day player on that film, played a photographer, and that was interesting. It was actually, to be honest with you, I haven't had the chance to see the film yet, but a lot of my friends were in it. It was really good that film was kind of grassroots, kind of homegrown in the Shreveport area. And Jamie King actually stars in that. She's a beautiful, talented actress, and I believe it was based on a true story.
That's what I heard. But a woman tried for murder in 1942 Louisiana. Actually,
speaking of the time period, they gave me a haircut from the 1940 era, and oh man, they tapered the back, and it was so short, and it just, it just looked, well, quite frankly, on me, it looked ridiculous, and but so I had to walk around with a 1940s haircut, till it grew out. That was interesting.
As far as writing goes, you wrote the story for a film called Scrape, which is currently or has been making the rounds at a number of film festivals. What can you tell us about that movie, and maybe a little bit about the experience of attending some of these festivals? What that experience and what that environment is like.
Scrape is just fun, man. It's so fun. What we were trying to do with Scrape is we were trying to do just a fun horror film. The market is so saturated with serious, make you jump in your seat kind of horror films, and I'm a huge 80s junkie. So what we were trying to do is just make a fun film that you could have just plucked right out of the 80s, in the 80s horror genre. So that was fun. We actually we had the opportunity to shoot that film on the Red Scarlet at 4K resolution, which was great. We actually mastered in 4K, which Hollywood doesn't even really do that. They usually master in 2K. So we're very proud that we're one of the only regional films that shot it in 4K, mastered in 4K, and we have a really beautiful picture. And that was fun. We shot it, we just got worldwide distribution, which is great. And, yeah, it's been around, it just started on the film festival circuit. Broken Blood actually has been doing really well on the festival circuit. Scrape just started, and it's been nominated for Best Picture or Best Feature Film a couple of times. And I tell you, the film festival circuit, I used to not be a fan of it. I thought to myself, I had that mindset, hey, I have enough trophies. And that's such a horrible mindset to have. But, I just was like, what are film festivals for? And then I started getting accepted into them and nominated and winning. And it changes you because you realize how important they are for the exposure of your film. And everyone that I meet at these festivals become super close friends of mine. And I see them at the next festival, and they really help with my movie. I help with their movie. And yeah, the festival circuit is absolutely wonderful. I'm really enjoying riding this wave, so to speak.
So you mentioned that one was nominated for a couple of films, and like what other like awards, other I guess achievements have you I guess you could call them. Like what other awards have you pulled?
Yeah. Now I'm starting to sound like my own publicist here. Let's see. Because I don't have a publicist at the moment, just so you know. Let's see. Well, okay. Recently, like I said, Scrape was nominated for Best Feature Film at the Northeast Film Festival. It was also nominated at the Phenom Film Fest for Best Louisiana Filmmaker Feature Film. And Broken Blood has been nominated for, let's see, we won Best Feature Film Trailer, which is a really unique category at the Hoboken International Film Festival. And I was also nominated for Best Actor there, and the film was nominated for Best of the Festival. And then also Broken Blood actually won Best Actor recently at the Northeast Film Festival, and it was nominated for Pruitt Taylor Vince was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Richmond Arquette and I were nominated for Best Screenplay, and I was also nominated for Best Director. And then it actually won Best Louisiana Filmmaker Feature Film at the Phenom Film Fest, which was wild because both my films were competing against each other. So I had my Broken Blood family over here going, hey, man, I hope we win. Had my Scrape family over here going, hey, man, I hope we win. And what do? It's like having two kids in the same, karate match or something, It's like, who do you root for? But, yeah, God, I'm like wearing myself out over here talking about all that stuff. But
I think that's just the point where you can just stand proud and feel awesome and be like, wow, I have more than one. Be like, wow, I have two awesome kids.
Well, exactly. I mean, no complaints here whatsoever. But, I got to say, for my Scrape family, they were very gracious, when Broken Blood won. So, and, of course, if Scrape had won, Broken Blood family would have been the same way. So I work with a lot of wonderful people.
So in a slightly different vein, you're also currently working on a documentary, I understand, called John G. Avildsen, King of the Underdogs. I probably just butchered that name, sorry. But
no, that's perfect.
Can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to do the documentary, just kind of some, differences in documentary work compared to other, films that you've worked with? And what would we be able to expect to see from that? Cool.
So it's John G. Avildsen, King of the Underdogs. It's going to be a feature film documentary, and it's about John Avildsen, who, for the audience, if you're not familiar with, is an Oscar-winning director. He directed Rocky, where he won his Oscar. He directed the Karate Kid trilogy and several other hit films like Save the Tiger, Lean on Me, and he has probably 30 years worth of hits, and he also has as many misses as he has hits, and I'll get into that. So when people ask me all the time, who's your filmmaking hero, I always say John Avildsen. Most people say Spielberg or Scorsese, and of course they're my heroes as well. But John Avildsen, he made two of my favorite films, Rocky the Karate Kid. So, those films are like Star Wars to me. And I happened to track him down, and we became good friends. And I actually was trying to get him to direct a couple of my scripts. Well, he passed. And I thought, I was very let down. Not everyone gets to meet the heroes. And so I really want to work with a hero. What am I going to do? And through talking with him and stuff, I realized there's never been a documentary about him. He's spoken in documentaries, but there's never been one really about him. And I said, hey, I want to do your story. Well, I've done enough Karate Kid stories. I said, no, Mr. Avildsen, I want to do your story. I want to do a film about you and your movies and how you have changed the world. People need to know your name and who you are. And he said, hey, I'm totally in. Let's do it. And he gave me his blessing. And so since then, I've been organizing it. I've actually already started production. We're going to be able to interview several of the iconic figures from his films, both behind the scenes and the actors. And we're really going to talk about, again, his life and career, but we're going to really hit home with his hit films and how Rocky and the Karate Kid literally have changed the world. And also about some of the misses he's had. He's made some really let's just be real, he's had some bombs in the box office. And so to me that's always fascinating, that you could have such success but also such commercial failure. And so that's going to be a part of the documentary as well. And I'll tell you a little story real quick. I just had lunch with him last month, and I said, what does it feel like to know that your films and you literally changed the world we live in? I mean, because let's face it, Rocky and the Karate Kid, they really have changed the world. And he said, I'll show you. And I go, okay. And he calls over this waiter. And I'll never forget this kid's name. His name was Trevor. So, Trevor, if you're out there listening, I'll never forget you. This kid comes up and he goes, yes, sir. He goes, son, I have a question for you. What do you think of when you hear wax on, wax off? And Trevor goes, I'm sorry, sir. Is that a trick question? The Karate Kid, of course. And Avildsen goes, thanks. And Trevor goes, oh, wait, I don't understand. I said, John, are you going to tell him? He goes, I directed that. And the kid lit up. And John goes, I love it. He said, I can go anywhere in the world, and I can ask that question, and without fail, everyone knows it's from my film. He said, and that is why I have a smile on my face right now. I love it. And I just thought that was the most amazing, honest, real moment that I got to witness with him. So we have a lot to expect with this documentary, I think.
Yeah, he's definitely an amazing person. And actually, I happen to be from the area that he's originally from, because he came up in Oak Park, Illinois. Was born there anyway. I actually happen to live not far from there.
Oh, nice. So yeah, he's definitely
Yeah, so there's definitely a little bit of hometown pride, coming through, and you see, somebody like that just with all the amazing and great things that he's done, and just his contributions, and it's very cool.
Yeah.
I had a question before we kicked back in. I know that you went into martial arts at some point in your life. Did his films have anything to do with you beginning your martial arts career, or was that just something you wanted to do?
Well, totally. I mean, and I got to tell him to his face, I said, you're the reason I'm a martial artist. I started, with our generation, we had the Karate Kid, we had Chuck Norris, and we had Bruce Lee, and Van Damme. I mean, if you're an 80s kid or even a 90s kid, whatever. And so those films were direct influences. And, I started martial arts, real going to classes and training when I was 13. So it was such a prime time of my life where, I felt like Daniel LaRusso in real life. And I think I was a little bit cooler than he was, because let's face it, he was a little sissy. But always had Miyagi belling him out and whatnot. And so it was a direct influence, no doubt. There were many times growing up when I had my karate headband and I was in my bedroom and I was acting out the entire Johnny and Daniel fight scene. I'm talking about like at 9 years old. It was amazing. So.
Yeah. Now, you have another movie right now that's, I guess, in the pre-production stages, Lemon Punk. What can you tell us? What can you tell us about that one?
Lemon Punk is. We were actually going to shoot it this year, but for a few reasons, we decided to push it to 2014. And Lemon Punk it's an action suspense thriller. It's very hip. Now, I don't mean like Tarantino hip. And when I say that a lot, people go, "Oh, you mean like Tarantino?" No. I mean like Derek Johnson. I'm ready to put my on a film, and yeah, this is going to be my version of an action suspense thriller, and it's a kind of a throwback. Again, here I go about the '80s, but remember when action movies had tough guys in it and not just pretty boys? Well, and they had characters and real stories. That's what I'm trying to do with Lemon Punk, and so very excited about that.
Badass.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking like William Friedkin car chases meets Martin Riggs, meets, you put all that together, but it's also going to have like a very 80s influenced feel and look to it. Been talking to Wayne Chung, who did my favorite soundtrack to Live and Die in L.A. Back in '85, and they're back, and I'm working on trying to get Wayne Chung to come do the soundtrack for Lemon Punk. So fingers crossed, working on it. We'll see what happens, but how amazing would that be?
Yeah, for sure.
That would totally be outstanding. But
yeah, I'm pretty stoked. I'm not gonna lie.
But it is really cool. As I say, if you haven't talked to Jeff, they'll come up with like a theme for our podcast here.
Hey, there you go.
I had a shameless little plug there. So anybody wants to find out more information about, you, who you are, your projects, what you're working on, where can they find you online?
Well, actually, I took down my official site recently, but you can find me on IMDb under Derek Wayne Johnson, not to be mistaken with Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Derek Wayne. And so IMDb, and also BrokenBloodMovie.com, where you can check out the trailers to Broken Blood. You can actually purchase the film through the website. It's on DVD and Amazon Video. You can rent it as well. And also on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook, Facebook.com/Derek Wayne Johnson. And all of my films have their own pages as well. So you can just Google that. And, I'm around on Google somewhere. You can find me.
All right. We had talked about off the air before we let you go or whatever. We'd want you first of all to rank maybe your favorite John Avildsen movie, and then if you didn't mind, maybe rank the Karate Kid movies in the order of your favorite.
Cool. And before you let me go, I got plenty of time, so no rush for me.
All right.
Movies is what I'm here to talk movies.
All right.
So, John Avildsen movie. Got to go with Rocky. It used to be the Karate Kid, and I think maybe they're tied. But as you get older, or as I get older, I'm less Daniel and more Rocky. Does that make sense? So,
right.
I got to go with Rocky. And the Karate Kid, to rank those, I think you know the answer to that one, because they just continuously got worse, didn't they?
Yeah.
One is just perfect. 4 stars all the way. 2 is an exceptional sequel. Love it. Probably, I will neither confirm nor deny that I jammed out to Peter Cetera just before this interview to get pumped up for it. The Glory of Love. It may have been on repeat on iTunes. Like I said, I don't know. But I I love that, and of course that was the first movie I remember seeing in the theater. Part 3, man, it's a guilty pleasure. We all love Part 3. No one wants to admit it, but it's still fun, and I love that they went in a serious tone. You know, the music's darker, the story's darker. It's cheesy as heck, but and then that next Karate Kid thing, that just, does that even exist? I don't even know. I don't even count that one. And then, of course, the remake, would never stoop as low. So, yeah, there's my Karate Kid for you.
Did you ever notice, this is one thing that I was just thinking about when you mentioned Peter Cetera, did you ever notice in John Avildsen's films and films of the 80s that nearly every one of them, especially Rocky, always had some kind of catchy soundtrack song? There was always a song from Survivor or Peter Cetera or
Frank Stallone. Yeah. And, you know, that's John. That's John. And, again, it's because we all love those cheesy songs. And that's John making a choice, you know, as a filmmaker. And, again, I just think he's an unsung hero. His name should be known in the ranks of Spielberg and people like that because, you know, they're so cheesy, but, and, you know, in the montages, he's the king of the montage. Of course,
yeah.
He's the king of the underdog, several, but he's also the king of the montage. And, yeah, there's a lot to be said there, and we're going to explore all of that, including the cheesy, catchy songs that you mentioned in the documentary.
Now, we're going to have Lloyd Kaufman on the 17th, and if I'm not mistaken, he was actually in the first Rocky film.
Yeah, and he's actually, you know, Avildsen's been just kind of a lifelong mentor to Lloyd Kaufman. You know, they've been friends for years, and actually, Lloyd is, we're working on getting him to be a part of the documentary. Hopefully we can grab his interview and like to hear his side of things about Avildsen. And he's a character. I love Lloyd Kaufman.
Yeah. Another thing that we wanted to talk about, let's see, lost my train of thought here.
That's good. I just have to ask because I'm very interested in Scrape. I'm a bit of a self-proclaimed horror buff, and just when is this movie gonna come out, and where am I gonna be able to find it?
Well, actually, we're a little bit behind on distribution. We have our deal made for worldwide, so we're looking at, if not at the end of the year, then definitely early 2014, and it's gonna be, you're gonna be able to find it on shelves. On DVD, Blu-ray, you're going to be able to find it, you know, on digital download and digital rental, things like that. So, as you know, that's where the market is headed, and the physical medium is kind of dying out in a way. So, it'll definitely be worldwide, limited theatrical. We're going for that. It's not going to be, you know, a big movie like Insidious or anything like that, of course. Yeah, you'll be able to find it, and what we're hoping is to just kind of get a good audience behind it, people that believe in it and really get it, because there's a lot of humor in it. And I actually screened it for some film students a couple of weeks ago, and they were the best audience I've ever had. They got it, and so I really think the youth, is really going to get it and really, really like this movie. And we're also trying to see about some television. We'll see if we can get it on TV. We'll see. But yeah, you'll definitely be able to see it. I'm excited. I think it's a fun movie.
I finally remember what I was going to ask. When we were talking about Lean on Me, that's another movie that's got a very underrated soundtrack.
Yeah. Lean on Me, another guilty pleasure. That's a good movie. I mean, Morgan Freeman, he's just, and we were working on getting his interview as well. So the documentary isn't just going to focus on Rocky Karate Kid. It's going to talk about Lean on Me and whatnot. And gosh, I can't wait to interview Mr. Freeman. But you know that soundtrack. You remember the pop version of "Lean on Me" that they did?
Club Nouveau.
Again, yeah, exactly. Again, that's another. That's John. That decade, he was just hitting the nail on the head, so to speak, with what was going on. He's very in tune with what's happening, you know, when it's happening.
Another movie I know you're fond of, this is getting way off topic, but another movie I know you're fond of is La Bamba.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, what would you like for me to say about that? Because there's so many things I could say about that movie.
Well,
love that.
Just anything you'd like to, really. It came to mind, and I figured it'd be worth a mention.
Well, yeah. Well, you probably come back to one of my Facebook posts recently about. I just feel Esai Morales was totally robbed. He should have been nominated. He was so great as the character Bob, the brother, and you know, and Lou Diamond Phillips did a fantastic job. But that film, I have brothers, and watching that film, it just got the brother relationship dead on, and of course the music, and the director, I can't remember his name offhand, but I think he did a fantastic job. So that's just one of those films that whenever I'm feeling down or need one of those self-inflicted cries, you know, because why do we watch sad movies? We want to cry. That's one of them, man. I love that film.
Luis Valdez was the director, by the way.
Yes. Amazing job. And hats off to Taylor Hackford, who very well could have directed it, but he just stepped back, and produced it because he felt that, you know, a Mexican-American man should direct that film. And I think he was totally right because Valdez got the feel for, you know, what was needed for the movie.
I know we got way off track with that one, but it came to my mind. I figured we had to give it some love. If anybody has any questions, by the way, for Derek, you can always call in at 323-843-6063. Clint, did you have anything else that you wanted to ask, or?
I'm just, kind of stuck in the horror mentality. Like I said, just this scrape is just very interesting to me. So, how big of a horror fan are you, and what were, I guess, if you had to have any horror-based inspirations, behind it, what are some of those?
Oh man, I am a huge horror fan, but not really of modern horror. I really love the classics, and I don't even mean, you know, the black and white classics, even though they're great. I'm talking the nitty-gritty ones from the 70s and the 80s. Although I love The Conjuring, I thought they did a great job, you know, which came out recently. But I love The Exorcist, The Omen, Amityville Horror 2, of course, all of the 80s stuff, you know, the franchises, Jason, Freddy, Chucky, Michael Myers. And I love An American Werewolf in London. And to me, again, John Landis, he'll always say, it's not a comedy, it's a horror film. But one of the best reviews I ever read from that film, and actually I'm friends with David Naughton, who played the werewolf, and we're going to be working together on something, and he and I talked about it. When it's funny, it's hilarious. When it's scary, it's frightening. And so, talking about werewolf, and so that's one thing that when we were going into pre-production for Scrape, we wanted to kind of have that vibe and that feel, you know, something humorous and thrilling at the same time. So, yeah, I'm a fan of all of that stuff. I'm just not really a fan of where horror is going or has gone recently. But I love The Conjuring so much, which got bad reviews because it just was old school, you know?
Yeah, I thought it also. I thought it was a real throwback. You know, it seems like a lot of movies are piggybacking off the whole Paranormal Activity and Saw, and let's see either how graphic we can get? Or the
song tried to one up each other on that.
Yeah. They're kind of forgetting about the story and concentrating on the gore, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's one thing it is to keep people going to the theater. They want that under 90-minute film that is jumpy and where they can just eat their popcorn and go home. So, there's a lot of business behind it, if not 100% business. They're becoming like the reality TV of movies, in my opinion. It's just to feed the masses. They're quick entertainment. But, so yeah, I totally agree with you there. Some of them are good and some of them are fun. But, yeah, I just prefer story. I prefer story over anything about a film. And I have to say also, Poltergeist is one of my all-time favorite films. It's probably my favorite horror film. I watch it probably 10 times a year. Probably going to watch it tonight now that it's been brought up. That film is just amazing.
There was a rumor, I don't know if this was ever confirmed or not, but there was a rumor, and I don't know if you've ever heard this, that Steven Spielberg stayed in one of the haunted Jefferson, Texas hotel or bed and breakfast or hotels, and it was right around the time I guess he was writing or getting ready to do that movie, and apparently something happened, and he was so terrified by what happened that he ended up leaving in the night or whatever. That's at least, I know on one of the hotel's websites, that's at least a legend. I don't know if it actually happened, but it was either the Excelsior Hotel there or the Hotel Jefferson. I know that.
That's pretty cool. I hope that's true. I never heard that, but that's a pretty good story.
Yeah, you can Google it for sure, but at one time it was actually on one of their websites.
Wow.
Stephen King actually had a similar experience when he wrote The Shining.
Mm-hmm.
He and his wife were actually staying in a Colorado hotel that was right around closing time for the season, and they were literally the only guests in this hotel. And one night for dinner, he and his wife were the only guests in the dining room there. There was nobody else there, and he started to have these really creepy dreams that night. He pictured that his kid was 3 years old at the time, and he said he could just picture his kid just down one of the long hallways, being chased by a fire hose and blood and all this stuff. And yeah, he said once he woke up from that, he kind of had a really rough idea of what what the story was going to be.
It's amazing where some of that stuff comes from.
We know in film school, my instructor, he always said, or my professor, he always said, write your dreams. Have a pen and paper next to your bed. You wake up, you write exactly what you just dreamed. And I got to tell you guys, I've used them a lot in my scripts. And so Stephen King being the master of horror, can you imagine if he has a notebook with what he dreamed that didn't even make it into any of his work? I mean, that guy, I don't know how he comes. I mean, he's amazing.
Yeah. So speaking of Stephen King, I had noticed earlier when I was actually browsing your IMDb, you did I guess you were on the set, I guess a stand-in for The Mist.
Yeah. Oh, dude, man, that was fun.
Did you happen to get to meet him when you were on there? Was he on the set at all, or?
I didn't get to meet him. I believe he did visit, and I'm sure a bunch of my friends that are listening are saying, I met him. I didn't get to, but, speaking of The Mist and segueing from Stephen King to Frank Darabont, that was amazing getting to meet him and watch him work. He was just so precise, and he's just everything you want in a director. He even had if I remember correctly, a scarf on, and he had his reading glasses, and he was dressed really cool. I tell people if he just would have had a beret, he would have been the quintessential director look. but the way he handled himself, and it's cool to work for, even when you're just a peon, as I was, to just be on set around your heroes, because so many traits you pick up from them. And I remember one time, I'm kind of fanning out right now, but I was kneeling down on set. It was in a soundstage in Shreveport, and he came and kneeled down next to me. And he actually smokes on set, which was interesting to me. But he smokes like a really cool cigar, like a flavored tip cigar. I don't know. And he kneeled down next to me, and he goes, "It's pretty cool, huh?" And I go, "Sir?" He goes, "All of this. It's just cool, huh?" And I go, "Well, it's amazing, Frank Darabont. Yes, it is cool." Because, I was just freaking out, and he was like, "Yeah." And he patted me on the back and winked at me. And it was just like, I'm assuming he knew, I was a peon, and he was probably just being super cool to me. And I'll never forget that. And if I ever get to meet him again, I'd love to thank him for being just so cool. He could just see that I was wide-eyed, and I was taking it all in.
Have you ever had any other kind of geeking out moments with on sets that you've been on?
I'm sure I've had plenty, but some things that come to mind, I guess, I had the opportunity to be a day player on a Michael Douglas film. It was actually the first time in a Hollywood film I delivered a line. It was to Michael Douglas, and I can't remember the line, and I had like a monologue and all this stuff, which I believe got cut. This stuff happens. But, no matter how the final cut turned out and how much I was cut out of it, the experience of that day was amazing. Michael Douglas had this aura about him. He just had this royalty in the way he walked, and I remember just kind of like looking at him and just thinking, this is Kirk Douglas's son, and this is Catherine Zeta-Jones's husband, and then I thought, and this is Michael Douglas. And, this isn't one of those stories where you name drop and you're like, oh, yeah, Michael Douglas invited me for a drink or something. It's nothing like that. It's just just standing there, being where you want to be for a day, and just getting to work with people that you've admired all your life. And then, now as a director, well, a little story, a little anecdote. I was a stand-in on a film for Ed Harris once, and Mark McCauley, who plays Jake in Broken Blood, he plays my dad. He was an actor in that film, and so we were running lines and stuff, and I had never met Mark, and actually Mark doesn't even know the story. So I'm a stand-in, so I'm just there to basically for them to light so Ed Harris can hang out in his trailer. And, I'm wearing what Ed's wearing, and I have to say his lines, and you're basically just a body double, so to speak. So you're a peon. It's paid film school is what we call it. You're getting paid to learn. So I'm there, and I'm running lines off camera with Mark McCauley, and I messed up a line or something, and Mark was like, "Come on, kid, you're messing me up." He wasn't mean to me. He just was like, I just felt stupid. Okay, so I just tucked my tail, and I was like, "Oh man," because Mark McCauley, he's been around, he's in everything. You know his face if you don't know his name. So I felt so disappointed. Well, guys, 3 years later, he's on my set playing my dad. I'm acting opposite him, and I'm directing him. And I never once told him that I was a peon 3 years before that messed up, flubbed my lines, and messed him up on camera. And so it was just, one of those surreal moments where it's good to go be a peon, go out there and be an extra, go start as a stand-in, go start as a day player, because if you just keep working your way up, you get to finally come into your own. And, Mark doesn't even know that.
I guess he does now if he's listening.
Oh, definitely.
you admit, did I hear you correctly? Did you say Amityville Part 2 when you were listing favorite horror movies?
Yeah. You like that movie?
Yeah. God, what a dark movie that was.
Totally dark. Man, that film probably creeps me out more than any films because it's so dark. And, you know, it's a prequel. Back before they were really even popular. It was a prequel to one, and it's just so good. And actually, it just got a Blu-ray release. And it's just so good. And if you watch that film and you're an aspiring filmmaker or even a film buff, you learn so much of film technique by watching that movie. I grew up with it, and I got a fan out here again. One time, Diane Franklin, who plays the daughter in the film, grew up having a crush on her. You know, she was big in the '80s, and Better Off Dead, and
Bill and
Ted. Yeah, one of the princesses, and we befriended each other on Facebook, and I was on the news for Scrape. I think I was on the news for the Scrape premiere or something, and she saw the link and she said, Derek, you were so adorable in the interview. Thank you so much for sharing Scrape with me, with like a wink. And I'm 30 years old, man. I freaked out. I was like, oh, my God, you know, Diane Franklin said I was adorable. It was just one of those, you know, you never stop being a fan.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't. And I totally geeked out. And I took a snapshot of my screen, and I still have it.
Burt Young, that was in the Rocky movies, was also in it. Didn't he play her father?
Yeah, he was so scary in that movie. He's just mean. Yeah. We're actually going to get the opportunity to interview him as well. So maybe I can ask him some Amityville 2 questions. Yeah, what a just a drastic. I mean, you know, he was always kind of a mean character in the Rocky films at times. I mean, at times he could be nice too, but he was a mean character in the Rocky films, and he just took it to the next level in Amityville too. That was one of the first movies that I remember. I watched it when I was younger too. That was one of the first movies that I remember that had I guess mainstream movies especially, that had like an incest scene between the brothers and sisters. Yeah, no, you're right. And the way they did it was, you know, it was obviously all suggested, which I think has more of an effect than showing it. Yeah. And real quick on Burt Young, growing up, I used to say that character in the film, Mr. Montelli, was Paulie on steroids. That's what basically his character is. He's Paulie from Rocky on steroids. Mm-hmm. Incest, man, that was weird. Freaky. Like I said, it was a very, very dark picture. Yeah. Love that movie. Unfortunately, that was another movie that they went to the well one too many times on that one. I think they ended up having at least 6 Amityville. Yeah. 3 of them I know were straight to video, I think. Yeah. Yeah, I think they topped themselves on 2. 1 is good. Yeah. Because, you know, you can't go wrong with Rod Steiger, but it's just 2, man. 2 was just like, it was just out there. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I heard you mention that, and that was kind of just a random, you know, people you would expect to hear Amityville 1, but when I heard that, I was like, man, that's strange that he mentioned Amityville 2. Yeah, it's well, and actually, I feel like I'm name dropping like some loser over here, but just trying to tell fun stories, I guess. You know, look at me, but it's not the case. I just love film, and I'm a fan, you know. But another fan is Miss Alda, who played Mrs. Montelli. You know, she was also in The Deer Hunter and Rocky II and a bunch of other films. She and I have corresponded, and we've talked about Amityville too a few times. And I also asked her, you know, I'm sure you get asked a lot, what was it like working with Meryl Streep and Robert De Niro in The Deer Hunter, but I didn't know, what was it like working with John Cazale? And she said, I've never been asked that. I'm a huge John Cazale fan, you know, who played Fredo in The Godfather. And
right.
She said he was lovely. She said every morning we would do our laundry together and read the news together and drink coffee together, and he was just so amazing. And, of course, he died before the movie was released. But I think that's what's awesome about the Internet is, you know, I'm not telling people to go track these people I've mentioned down. That would be wrong or unethical. But when you do get to experience and talk to people that have inspired you, and you know, like you guys on your show, you had Claudia Wells the other night, who was, for the audience, if they didn't know, was, you know, the original Jennifer in Back to the Future. I mean, that's just amazing, you know, that because we're all Back to the Future junkies, so it's really cool for fans to just kind of use the power of the Internet to fan out, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of funny you mentioned her. I guess we both have an Elizabeth. You know, you were a Karate Kid fan, and we talked to some Back to the Future people. Elizabeth Shue, I guess, comes into play on both of those.
That's true.
Yep.
What degree from Elizabeth Shue all of a sudden? I like it.
Well, is there anything else that you'd like to say to your fans or anyone before we wind things up? Or
well, you know, I'd just like to say thanks to you guys, Jackson Jedi. I really appreciate you inviting me on to the show. You know, can you imagine what I would be like if I had, you know, drink a Dr. Pepper before the show or something? I feel like I'm not eating nothing. But I'm just pumped. You know, I love talking movies, and you know, so I really appreciate it. And to anyone, you know, to everyone listening, you know, again, you know, check out my IMDb, check out the websites. Let me know what you think about my films if you get a chance to see Broken Blood. And you know, for aspiring filmmakers and actors out there, not to sound like a motivational speaker or anything, but you know, just got to go do it. Get out there and put the time and the effort in.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being on the show, and I'm sure we'll have some panel discussions and things like that in the near future that you could contribute pretty well to. So maybe when those happen, or when your documentary gets closer to completion, we'll have you back on to talk a little more with you.
Hey, I appreciate it. I'd be happy to do it.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Anytime.
Thanks, guys.
Take care. All right, that was Derek Johnson on the It's All Geek to Me broadcast. Our phone number is 323-843-6063. Got about 50 minutes. I don't know if we're going to do a whole 2-hour show, but got a few things we wanted to talk about before we wind up. Really enjoyed having him on the show. That was some very interesting stories, and we went a little off topic, but it wouldn't be a It's All Geek to Me episode if we didn't.